But why don't we start off with just intros and background, and then we can jump into it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joy. I work with Chad from a client standpoint. So I work for Kenvue. My brand is Aveeno, and I work on the face, hair, sun. I lead global innovation and comms. And so Chad and I, of course, have been working for a while now in terms of getting quals for research. And of course, Chad is going to share the amazing work that Vurvey has been doing and how we have been applying that in our innovation concepts and our process to help expedite stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of the talks that you'll hear throughout this full week when people talk about AI is primarily using it to help them generate content, function as like a writer or create visuals or produce things or synthesize things. And our journey was very different in how we were using AI, not really as having a human in the loop of AI, but what if the humans were the loop? And so maybe I'll start with just kind of some background and like what we're actually doing, so I might ground people because you won't be able to see some of the visuals here. But so my background was in consumer research and design. And for the last 20 plus years, our teams were out doing all qualitative research all over the world. And so about 5 years ago, we were coming up to some limitations of only having a few people that could weigh in on innovation. So think of kind of like the focus group, and you were very, very limited to who you could collaborate with. And so the concept was, what if you could actually interview the world and take what everyone's saying, all these kind of the diverse opinions, feedback loops, how you're seeing things, lived experience. What if you could actually put all that information into a model, an AI model, and actually create your target customer rather than having a representation of who they are, but actually create entire populations of who they are so that they can see and hear and watch and create with you. And Kenvue, and specifically Joy, and the wonderful teams across all of Kenvue, were just very, very much so early adopters in not using agents, co-pilots, those types of things, which were great for very specific business or general business purposes, but to actually look at creating with AI and populations in a very unique way. I wonder if you could share a little bit of how, because it was very groundbreaking at the time, and I don't think a lot of people are actually sharing a lot of these use cases because it's kind of like trade secrets on this. So I don't know if you can share a little bit about what that looks like.
Yes, absolutely. So a little bit of context. As I said, when we first started with Vurvey, it was really about qualitative research. So that's your interviews. You have, as Chad says, let's say you have 10, 20, you have all these questions that you want to be able to ask. The great thing about being part of like qual research is you get to hear in on these interviews and really have that communication with your customer and the people who potentially buy your products. And so we would house all those qual data into Vurvey. And so it was a hub and continues to be a hub with all our research. And so about 2 years ago, we would usually have an innovation week because I'm on the innovation team. And so it helps me if I can have like my cross-functional partners all around the world. Not only does it help from a team building standpoint, but it also helps to really get ideas going. And completely, I'm on the stance where ideas come from everywhere. So, and it's not necessarily always from the creative people. Sometimes it's your R&D partners, it's your packaging partners, your engineers, all those different functions get to participate. So we had about 55 people we knew were going to be coming for this innovation week. And so we were thinking of, how do we expedite this process? We have 3 days. We really want to be able to get 24 solid ideas out of this group. So we want to ensure that it's worthwhile for everyone as well as for us, because we don't want rubbish ideas. And so it's how do we ensure that we truly, truly benefit from these groups. And so we had these 55 people, 3 days. A lot of them, apart from us marketers who know how to write concepts, trained and know how to do that, a lot of the people in our group are not marketers, right? As I mentioned, they're my scientists, they're engineers, they're packaging, all from technical works of life. And so it's, okay, how do we use this? How do we upskill them in 3 days and get the output in 3 days? And so we posed the problem to Chad and the team, and we basically asked, and they said, well, we have the AI part of the Vurvey that can really help expedite that process. And so that was like our first time of using that in 3 days, and would say that something that would usually take 3 months to do, we took 3 days to do it. And I would also say that the part that was super transformative, not only did we have amazing ideas at rapid speed of light, but we also were able to empower these functions, as I mentioned, these technical functions, to feel as though they were marketers as well. And they felt empowered to create these ideas because we had AI. And the AI part was not just AI for the AI's sake, but it was the humanification of AI. Because as I mentioned, we're using our qual data, we're using our research, we're using all these insights that we've gathered, and we poured it into AI. We also poured into AI, into Vurvey, our design, our brand guidelines, because of course, out of the concepts, we want to be able to get mock-ups of our ideas. And so we have one designer who has 3 consultants. So we can't use him to be able to have all those ideas in those 3 days. And so having the Vurvey system, especially with the agents, helped us to expedite that process. So for us, it was transformative. Not only did we have this hub that housed all our data, but we were able to create ideas with people who are not idea machines in speed of light. So
one of the big breakthroughs that happened over the last couple of years is that, while the rest of the world are using language models, so GPT, Gemini, which are amazing at essentially predicting language, right? But they obviously gravitate towards the mean very quickly. And so when you are creating, like when we were creating our first personas, it was, how do we bring Jade to life? How do we bring Ava to life around sensitive skin? How do we bring Jenny Z? Yeah. How do we bring these ideas, these segments to life as personas that you could interact with? Essentially, the persona of the slide could talk back to you. You could share ideas. And so while the rest of the world were building more of these synthetic, audiences or synthetic users, where you typically are, you're getting kind of a sea of sameness, we were pioneering the creation of this whole new category of AI models that we are calling people models. And people models are very different than language models. They allow you to essentially model out human behavior. And so you can generate a specific individual that can see things and hear things, and they have lived experience. And I often describe it, it's kind of like creating a sim city for your brand, where now you have your own world. We have like a Aveeno world that's full of like kind of agentic personas that can see and hear, and they can use tools, and you can show ideas to them, but they don't give you the vanilla generic response that you might get from an LLM. They give you very opinionated perspectives, just like real people. Because that's how we're going to grow, is through not necessarily criticism, but it's, I don't want to put ideas into kind of the answer engine and it tells me I'm a genius all the time. I want to be challenged. I want to see the world through different people's eyes and create, a more diverse approach to, ideas that can scale. You mentioned Jenny Z, but I know this was very new, 2 years ago, where instead of distributing a PowerPoint deck for people to ideate against, we were giving them agents to collaborate with. And, this year, agents have kind of become mainstream, but 2.5 years ago when we were starting this was very new. And so I'm just curious, the effects, I can see the effects on top line growth and adoption and things like that. But how did it impact teams where now you essentially had consumers in your pocket?
So happy.
Absolutely. So it continues to be groundbreaking for us. And because, of course, it's a resource aspect as well that truly benefits us. So apart from personas like Jenny Z, one that I would say has been extremely beneficial for us is we call her Dr. Oates, and that's our derm agent. So because we're Aveeno, not only are we extrapolating insights from consumers, we're actually also extrapolating insights from derms. And we don't have that many derms on call because of it's expensive, right? So from a resource standpoint, even the derm that we have, she's overwhelmed. She just doesn't have Aveeno brand. She has Neutrogena, she has Neostrata, so she has all these different brands and which she advises. So of course we want to be able to extrapolate these insights. And so how do we do that in an efficient way when we only have one person on board? And so the agent, Dr. Oates, has been a way for us to be able to get those insights because you feed Dr. Oates with all these insights and all this research that our derms have been able to put it, and we put it in this model. And so Dr. Oates, when we're in the building, we feel as though, oh yeah, we have Dr. Asha in the building because it truly is spitting out all these insights, very similar to all the other personas. It's real data that you're using and data that you know where it's coming from, not just data from the ether. And so that has really empowered us and made us feel, confident to be able to say, okay, we can come up with ideas that we truly got insight from a derm. We got insight from a consumer just because we have the human behind the AI.
So there's, I know as you're doing speaking and also seeing all different kinds of, just like how AI is getting applied. I guess what are you seeing? Just like where everything's headed next, and how maybe people should start to think about leveraging AI as opposed to just kind of putting it as like the answer engine. Because I think you are, you have a very different approach to it, and especially at Kenvue, are using it in lots of different ways across, bringing people together. Just curious what you're seeing as like the next frontier and what this looks like.
I continue to see the human aspect of AI truly, and I think you guys are at the forefront of doing that. I feel that's like a huge differentiation, right? And there is, especially as AI continues to be more prominent in our lives, there's a huge craving from the human aspect. I think it's in everything that we do. I think we've got an overload of technology just in when you see it trends. And so people are craving that human part of it. People who are resistant to AI are resistant because they feel as though they're losing that human part of it. So really human is the heart of it all. And so it's how do we interject AI and from the human standpoint. And I always, even people who are resistant, try to, because one thing I also love, another passion part of my existence is really developing talent. And so I see AI as a talent. I always say it's like a new intern coming into the company or a new person coming to the company. And when they come, what do? You train them. You take time to really hone. You still also don't lose that human aspect of it. And so rather than just seeing AI as a tool, which I commonly hear, I think that ends up making it very mechanical. And of course, also brings that fear to AI. But if you see the human side of AI, knowing that AI doesn't know everything, AI is going to get it wrong, but you are still the leader. You're in the driver's seat. How do you ensure that you feel empowered to keep on leveraging AI, but knowing that you are the leader and you're in the driver's seat? So to ensure that we don't, AI is not just a search engine, because I know many of us use it as such, but see it, maybe it's a provocation as a new talent that you're developing, and that could potentially help you see it from a human aspect of how to leverage it.
Yeah, one of the examples we were hoping to share, maybe I'll try to talk through it, was called the Neuroverse. So this was a thing we brought to life over the last, maybe the last year, where we were building the world's first neurodivergent population. So think of AI agents that are dyslexic, they're autistic, they're nonverbal. It was a very interesting kind of brief to start with. And the main inspiration was that like kind of a crazy stat was that Gen Z, 53% of Gen Z identify as being neurodivergent. So if you are building products, marketing, messaging, communications, experiences, and 53% of your target audience is not seeing the world that you do, how do you create? And so what we did was, as Joy mentioned, like we did the research, right? We went out to engage these communities to understand what being autistic feels like, what you see, how is it different from others. And so putting all these different facets into people models allowed us to create a population around neurodivergent individuals that had names. They have pets that have names. They understand what they look like. And for the Super Bowl, we had them watch the Super Bowl with us. And so while you and I were watching Bad Bunny and all the ads and everything come through, they were right next to us watching too. And so while USA Today, the Budweiser ad, I don't know if anybody's here from Budweiser, but came in first with USA Today ad meter. It did not with the neurodivergent population. And so they created their own scores around cognitive load and how well they understood the concepts and the ideas. And again, it was seeing the world through other people's eyes is really a way for us to scale empathy beyond us trying to like role play. It's making AI that not just feels more human, but it is more human. And I just thought it was like a fascinating case study around how do you take your values as a company and put them into your models of how you're creating things. And I know you guys are doing it. You're doing it like a lot behind the scenes too. That it doesn't get mainstream press because all the LLMs and the billions raised to build answer engines are. But I feel like you're creating for everyone, and you're designing it from the model layer out, which is just inspiring.
Yeah. And I would say the population aspect too is absolutely game changer. So that for us is like a new feature, which we're totally excited about continuing to explore. Literally just got that. And so it's so exciting to be able to know, hey, I think of it from still back to resource, right? Sometimes I want to be able to do research. I don't have enough money to do research. I don't have enough time to do research, and I want it fast. And so to know and to feel as though I can use populations that are distinctive. So within the population, you have these individuals that are super distinctive, gets me super excited because I know ultimately the output, because truly your output is driven by your input. And so if my input is amazing, then I know my output. I feel confident that what I'm putting to the forefront and what I'm recommending is consumer based, is derm based, like all that is research based. And so I would say that's one part that has been transformative and exciting, because I know you'd asked what is one thing. I'm really excited about the populations and where that could take us from just 12 agents. First it was like one agent to 12 agents to population. So I feel every year, I was telling Chad the other day, it gets better. Right? So for the past 2.5 years, it's really been getting better. The Vurvey has been getting better with what you guys.
Yeah. So what Joe's talking about, so we launched something called Populations a few weeks ago. What it allows you to do is not just build, like 12 segments. What if you could create 12,000? What if you could test ideas with 12 million people and do it overnight? Would that make you more confident in your decisions? And I think that what's really interesting about obviously like being here and also some of the talk track around maybe how like the rest of the world uses AI and then what we're doing and pioneering is that this gives you a chance to fight for your ideas in a really unique way and have confidence behind them. Because at the end of the day, you're really just trying to take what's in your head and play it out. Right. And so we were clumsy through the beginning of doing focus groups, again, all well intended, right? Because we wanted to get these feedback loops, but that was for a linear world, right? Where we had to survey humans because I couldn't show a human 2,000 ideas in one night. Yeah. Well, now you can. And so I think this is this is unlocking just this new capability as an individual, as a team, as a company. Of this is how all of your consumers can now truly become creators, in the process, and everybody on your cross-functional teams. It's this, the scientist that feels like they can't participate in a workshop, right? Because sometimes you can't get the ideas out of your head. Yeah. And I think it's just, it's making, it's transformation kind of inside the business, but also I think what's vital is for all of us as we're investing in models and platforms and different things, there's an opportunity to put your values at the core of what you're building again. Yeah. And I think it's inspiring.
Yeah, I would say also how empowering, you mentioned the scientists where they now feel like marketers because they have Vurvey, right? Like, yeah, I can come up with a concept, right? And usually they wouldn't. And so I love how empowering everyone feels by using a tool. And that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to feel empowered that you still have your expertise. No one is going to, AI is not coming to take your expertise away from you, but you still feel empowered as though you're in the driver's seat. And so Chad, I do want to be able to ask, like, what is one thing that you wish more people knew about AI that they don't?
So I think it's just having an understanding of the landscape around AI models. And this is maybe like the nerd part of our talk, but I think a lot of the language models, get a lot of the publicity and press because they're getting billions in funding. And then we're all familiar with like ChatGPT and like all these tools. Some of the interesting things that are happening at the model level, I talked about what we're doing on the people model side, but then you also have world models over here, which are building more kind of physical, kind of digital spaces that mimic the real world. And I don't think people fully understand maybe the breakthroughs that are coming through by pioneering this space on people models. We all talk about human behavior and trying to understand one another, and no one's really building models for that understanding like we are. And so it's very biased in that, like, I love people, I want to understand people, but the ambition is I want to create with millions of people. And I feel like this is the way that you can do that and also build personalization in a way that understands me, not just through my clicks and not the algorithm, but like understand me, build with me, create with me. And I think that has the biggest potential to actually change the world. It's not getting a faster result, to build the efficiency. We've been there. We already know what that feels like. I think it's how do I get ideas out of your head in a nonlinear way to actually build ideas and have sounding boards and springboards that can refine and make them better and cause you to see something differently. And I think that's one of the most inspiring things about people is that they're bringing their lived experience into a meeting, into meeting on the sidewalk and seeing things. And so how can you bring that kind of dream state into AI where it's not just language? Like you and I react first viscerally versus we have the words for it or we know what's happening. So I think just pioneering this new space is very important through that process.
I would say so too. I would say the surprising and delightful aspect of it, which is why we love humans, is that usually you're in a room and ideating and there's something that's surprising and delightful that comes out of that. And I find that with using the platform, especially with the concepts, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I would never have thought of that. Let us explore more, right? Versus things that feel mundane is what I feel. Yeah.
It's very emotional. I mean, you have, you're giving a voice to people that can't get ideas out of their head. And it's something very emotional in that, which I think is, it's awesome. We got the 5 minute warning.
5 minutes.
We wanted to open it up for any questions. I don't know if it's allowed, but
of course it's allowed. Okay. We have no slides.
But yeah, any questions on just kind of this whole space around building models of the future, or starting to look at creating these brand worlds where you can ideate and test the future. Any questions?
You've mentioned that obviously this has evolved a lot over the last 2.5 years, continues to get better. And it sounds like you had access to a lot of really rich information with the interviews that you do with your customers, which maybe not everyone has, but that's a really great thing to be able to feed into the models. I guess over the last 2.5 years, what do you feel like have been those inputs that have really made an impact on the quality that you're able to get out of these models?
Yeah, great question. I would say too that apart from our quals, we also put in our quantitative and all the other research. So not necessarily all the research from Vurvey, but other research that we've done, and we fed it into the model. But I would say one thing that has been at least truly transformative to see, and I think it helped, is putting our brand book into the model, because that helped with the design. So I remember when we first started, design was so wonky. The outputs that we were getting was so wonky. But I would say in the past 2.5 years, literally did this exercise, was it 2 weeks ago? Wow, this is actually impressive. So I would say as much as you can be more specific with how you want your brand to come out, the output, that has tremendously helped. And we had our designer also help with informing, putting that into the model, because when we first started, it was wonky, as I mentioned, but the more we were able to be specific and all that and truly work with our designer to make it better, that has helped. Very similar to the Dr. Oat example, our persona, we worked with our derm in-house to help inform Vurvey. So the more we're able to, yes, it does take work to be able to do the initial output, but the initial input, but the output has been tremendous and continues to pay dividends. So yeah.
That's great. Any last questions? Awesome. Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead. Keep it going.
I'm just curious, Joy, and you may have said this and I missed it, but when you're building your models, how much are you taking outside of your consumer worldview and your brand worldview into consideration versus really ideating from, okay, this is what we know to be true about our consumers? Because I'm wondering from a competitive, white space perspective, how much are you allowing the model to look outside to inform?
Yes, very great question. So we do have the model also looking outside, but to your point in terms of competitive, we also have because we do have a lot of research. So we work with Kantar, a lot of WGCN, we put all that data that we get into Vurvey in addition to getting the outside. But what we're trying to do is also control the input, right? Because we're not necessarily sure about the LLMs and where that is coming from, but we know our partners that we work with in terms of the research we get, we trust that quality. So we're putting in that quality into Vurvey, which we feel that helps us feel more confident than just putting it into ChatGPT, even though we're not allowed to, from a process standpoint. But I can't control that information and where chat is getting that from. But I have more confidence in where Vurvey is getting that from because I'm part of the input, right?
Yeah. So you can build. So we build general populations that kind of mimic the U.S. Let's take for that, right? And so we're working with entertainment companies where you can test a movie trailer across the whole country, and within hours you can simulate feedback from all these different audiences, and it doesn't leak IP, and the brand doesn't have to decide, well, here's who our segment is. What if we could actually test it with the world? And what if that could inform who our audience is? And I think as marketers, we've always had to decide who our audience is. It's the first drop down is pick your audience. You're well, it's not demographic based. It's we're talking about themes of what it's like being a dad, or what it's like having a special moment. Well, that could unite with all of us in very different ways. And so I think for us, as we build out populations, it gives you the ability to test ideas of the world, to kind of learn who your audience actually is and why, or also take your segments that you view as being unique and custom, like a sensitive skin segment. But we know that it has very diverse within that. And so you can use your proprietary data to build out your unique audiences that are only yours, but you can also test ideas with the world. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Joy, so much.
Thank you, Chad.
Really appreciate it. Thanks
you
everybody
all.
for hanging around.
Okay.